Today I'm going to demonstrate two different versions of the Coptic stitch binding. Coptic stitch is an open spine binding done like this. There are lots of different ways to do it, lots of variations. There's not a right and a wrong, just different ways. But two of the ways that I like to do, and then I have my own little way I like to do them. But I like the single needle and the double needle. Now, a single needle Coptic stitch goes down the spine like this, and it's typically, the thread is all the same color because it's all one piece of thread, and you just go up, down, back and forth like so. Double needle Coptic stitch, you can put different colors of thread, use different colors, and you work in pairs. I work these two with this color thread, two needles on the end, and you work across the spine like this. And then these two change colors of thread, two needles, and you work across this way. The difference in the stitch, if I was a kneader, sewer, or bookbinder, you could probably tell better, but I'm not. So let's just see if you can even get a sense of how different these are. Okay, this is the single needle Coptic that runs down the spine like this, up and down, up and down, up and down. The two middle ones, or however many holes you punch, doesn't matter, but the middle ones will always have the kettle stitch, which looks kind of like a crochet chain stitch. Kind of hard to tell with this thread. Might be able to see it a little better here. So in a single needle, your middle stitches, your stitching stations will always have that nice kind of chained kettle stitch. Your two ends will always have a weird kind of just looping. You don't get a complete kettle stitch on your two ends. This is where you add the next signature, so you don't get the, you get like half of the stitch, not the whole one, so you get this kind of weird little chain in the single needle. Double needle, you get your chain kettle stitches all the way across because you're going this way. So this, just for aesthetic reasons, this is why I like the double needle. Plus you can have different colors of threads on your along your spine. For, easier, quicker, this one I like. So that's the difference in the two, and I'm going to show you how to do that. We're going to start with the single needle, and you're going to need a single needle, a tapestry needle, or a bookbinding needle is what you need. Oh, here they are. They are typically have kind of a big eye. Now, if you've poked little holes in your signatures, you're using a skinny thread, you don't need a big eye needle. You need to choose one with a smaller eye. I've got some big honking holes, so this big eye is fine, and with tapestry and bookbinding, the tip of the needle is blunt. That's not an absolute necessity, but it does make things easier. Personally, for doing the Coptic stitch, I prefer a curved needle like this one. It just is a little bit easier in getting around those stitches, which will make more sense to you when we get started. So I'm going to use this curved needle, and I'm going to use this thread that I found. Honestly, I think I got it at a thrift store. It is kids' jewelry braiding cords, and I have a couple of cards like this, and this is just a cotton, kind of a tightly woven cotton cord that I'm going to use. And I don't really know that it's thick enough to show off our stitches really well, but we'll find out. We'll just see. If I don't like it, I'll change midstream. My only really thick string that I have is plain white cotton, and it's just not what I want for these because these are colorful. How much you're going to need depends on the length of your book across, down the spine, like this, and how wide it is across, you know, which is going to depend on not only how many signatures you have, but how thick those signatures are. Okay, to me, that just translates into a very complicated, you know, like physics equation or something. I don't even try to figure out the formula for how much thread I need. I measure off 2 couch cushions, and that has worked well for this size journal that I've been making. And 2 couch cushions for me is about 48 or 50 inches of thread. And I usually end up, you know, cutting off quite a bit, but I would rather have too much thread than too little. It's really not difficult to tie on thread during this. You know, it's definitely possible. I would just prefer not to have to stop and do it. So, that's what I'm using. Now, I've got my little book ready here. I've got my tops marked. I'm going to start with a front cover and the first signature. And really, to me, this attaching the first signature and the last signature is the only kind of tricky part, because you do it along with the cover and I get confused. And plus, I normally do this in my lap and I hold the book between my knees as a clamp. So this just gets a little unwieldy. So if I have problems, we may have to switch to the lap cam. But I'm going to try to do it, you know, all classy and tabletop. We'll just see how that goes. Okay, I have clamped my first signature to my cover at the top here with just my little deal. And what I'm going to do first is I'm going to go into the last stitch of my cover at the bottom. Go in from the inside. Okay. I'm going to leave a tail of, I don't know, 3 or 4 inches. You can clamp that securely if you're worried about pulling it. And right here, you can see we're coming out that end hole of our first signature, and here is the end hole of our cover. What I'm going to do is, oh, I've been doing double needle for so long that now I'm confusing myself. Alright, go in through the top of this corresponding cover hole. Pull my thread through, like so. Now what I'm going to do is, and this is just for aesthetic reasons, I'm going to circle around that stitch, like that. And as with everything, I'm going to pull it snug but not tight. So I've looped around. Now I'm going to go back down the same hole in my signature. Where am I? Just like that. Come out. Make sure that you don't split your thread. Come out cleanly through the hole and not up through your thread. Okay? Pull snug, everything is pulled snug, and actually right here I stop and I go ahead and tie a knot. And just go ahead and secure my thread from the get-go. Okay, and I'm going to cut off this piece so that it doesn't get in my way. Now I can go on with my life, right? I'm going to move up to the next sewing station right here. Come up through the spine, pull snug, go down through the cover, and kind of keep everything in the same direction. See, I'm coming out on the left of this thread, so I'm going to do that every time. Come out on the left of the thread. That just kind of helps everything stay the same. Okay. So, got it looped around like that. Now, I want to just put this between the cover and the first signature. Loop around, like so. Pull snug and then go back down into the signature through the same hole I came out of. Okay. Then you just repeat for the next two holes, or for the next hole, I should say. Go up this one. Come out through the spine, in the cover hole, and then to the left of our thread. And wrap around, and I'm wrapping from right to left every time. Just do whatever's natural for you and do it the same every time. This just kind of adds a little extra security for attaching the cover, and also a little bit of continuity for the stitches. You don't get that weird abrupt change. I'll have to show you. It'll make sense when we start sewing. Go back down through the middle, pull snug. So I probably could have pulled that one a little tighter. Yeah, it's alright. Whatevs. Okay, come around this one. Do the same thing. This is the last sewing station in our signature and our cover. Down around like that, down through the cover, between the cover and the signature, just wrap around that stitch, and don't go back in the same hole. This is where we add on our next signature. So put the top to the top, line it up, and I am going to open the signature to the middle and then clamp it to the previous ones just to hold it in place. Also helps me to keep track of the top. My cover is secured now, and I begin the stitching, Coptic stitch. Now, attaching the next one, you go just like we did before, down into the cover. I've already done my little wrap around, so I'm just good to go. Keep going. Go down into this first corresponding hole on your next signature. This will be our second signature. Come out through the middle. Pull it snug. Now, see, you've got the little kind of half twist right there. Now, next station, do the same thing. Come up through. Pull kind of snug. Wrap around the previous signature stitch. Go back down through your open loop. And back down through your hole. And this is why I don't recommend doing this for books with few signatures, because see, you really need to have several in a row before you can tell what's going on. Now the end, this is where we don't get our full stitch because we're adding on. You go up through, and the middles of your signatures will have threads between each hole. So if you look in the middle and you don't have threads between each hole like this, you've done something wrong. Okay, pull that tight. Now go around that first signature, between the first signature and the cover, like so. Go back down through your open loop, like so. Pull tight. Now we're not going to complete the stitch and go back down through the signature because we're at the end, so we add on the new one. And I've still got my clamp where the top is, so I know how to line them up. And I'm going to open the new signature to the middle and put the clamp back on. And just keep going down through the hole. Up through the next one. Go around, go up to the previous signature, and then go around between the previous signature and the one before it. So that's 1 and 2. Pull, make sure your loop is open, and then take your thread back down through the open loop. Pull it snug, and then go back down through your signature hole. And now you can start to see the chain forming, right? Let's do it again. Up. Maintain the same direction. Have I been calling it left to right? Yeah, well, I guess it's right to left. Okay, there's the previous signature and the one before it. That's where you're going around. open loop down through. And pull, and then go back down into that same hole in your current signature. Oh, that one's not as pretty. I got a little wonky here and there. But you can see, in a perfect world, that would be a perfect chain. Okay, and then on the end, up through, previous signature and the one before, that's what we're going down between. And you may be able to kind of see how a curved needle makes this a little bit easier. Open loop, go down through. Pull snug. Okay. Next signature. Down through. Up through the next one. Go between the previous signature and the one before it, which is going to be right there. Down through the open loop. And down through, back through that same hole. Are you getting it? It's basically the same all the way across, except for the ends, and those are our kind of our turning stations. Between the previous signature and the one before it. Make sure your loop is not twisted. This one's doing really well. This one not so much. Which is always the case with me. Yeah, down through. Yeah, and remember, if you accidentally poke a brand new hole in your signature, that's fine. That's an air hole. Your book needs to breathe. Don't stress about it. You're just doing it a service by letting the air circulate. Now I have just come out through my last hole in my one before the last signature. So normally I would want to go down the corresponding hole in my last signature, right? That would be my next step, like it's been all through here. But this is the last one with the cover. So instead, I'm going to skip that last signature hole, the last hole of the last signature, and I'm going to go around my cover into the cover hole, like that. Then I'm going to pull that snug. I'm going to do my kettle in between. Okay, we're in the last signature. So the one before, I think I just poked another hole. It's alright. I'm gonna do that. I'm gonna go down through my loop. And now I'm going to go into the last hole in the signature, if I can find it. There it is. Got it. Okay, is that totally confusing? Let's do it again. Go up through the last hole in my signature, or the next hole in my last signature. Now, I'm going to go down around, catch my cover first. I can do my kettle up there first or my cover. I'm choosing to do my cover first. So go through the hole in my cover. Hold that tight. Then come up and do my kettle stitch. And remember, I'm in the last signature, so it's between the previous one and the one before that, so it's right here. Come around. My little tail is too long. Now I've got my loop. Go down through my loop to make my little chain looking stitch. There we go. And now down through, back through my signature. And that is it. I'm going to tie this off. Okay, you can do a square knot like this. You go over and back up through. So over and up, and then go under and down, and that will give you a square knot here on the end. Snip it off, unclamp, and we are done. That is the single needle Coptic stitch, and if you can see, you get your kind of a twist on the end. That's your turning stitch. And then you get the chains or the kettle stitch in the middle, and then your turning twists on the end. Or not really a turning stitch, I'm not crocheting. That's your adding on the new signature. That's what that is. And there you have it. See, that wasn't difficult. It's just kind of the same all up and down. It can get a little tricky attaching your covers, and there's definitely more than one way to do that. Just make sure you get them on there securely. And you're good to go. And I might want to, some of these little bitty ends like this, I might want to trim that off just so that it doesn't get caught and bent. And you can definitely take your scissors and just kind of trim your resin. See, like this little protrusion right there. That's just going to get bent and weird, so I'm going to snip that off. Just kind of round it to make it look natural. Now everything is punched and ready to bind in our double needle Coptic stitch. So what I'm going to need, I've cut 2 pieces of thread in 2 different colors. Did I say how long was this about? Yeah, 48 approximate inches each. And I'm going to take one of my needles and put it on each end of the piece of thread. So here's my thread, and I've got a needle on both ends. Okay? Now what I'm going to do is take my first signature, open it to the middle, pick 2 stitches. I'm going to choose the 2 on this right end because those are the 2 I always choose, and it'll just mess me up if I change. And I'm gonna wonder why. Oh, I'm gonna put my needle through those last 2 sewing stations from the inside coming to the outside. Like that. Then I'm going to grab the ends of my thread and just even them up, make sure that they're the same length. Okay? Now, I'm going to put my cover on. This is the top. So this is how my cover's going to go, like that. And I can do the same clamping thing just to kind of hold stuff in place. I'm going to start with, doesn't matter which one, just, you know, again, do it the same every time. Let's move in. And what I'm going to do is, now remember, instead of thinking right to left, left to right, whatever, I'm going to think inside and outside. This is inside the stitches. This is outside the stitches. So however you loop your thread around, you just want to do it the same every time, whether it's from the outside in or the inside out. I always go from the outside in. So I'm going to take my first thread here. I'm going to go around to the outside of my cover, go through the hole, pull it snug, and I'm going to go ahead and do the same over there. Okay, do you see how this thread, when I went around, it comes to the inside? That would be the outside. I pulled it to the inside of the holes. Let me do this one. Let's see if I can hold it and do it. Okay, see, if I pulled it around like that, it would come out on the outside. I want it on the inside. So whatever you do to one side, do to the other. So if I'm going to the inside on the left hole, I want to go to the inside on the right hole. So my thread is on the outside. Fix it. Now it's on the inside. So they're both on the inside. Okay? Now, I've got to pull them tight again because it got weird. Now at this point, that's all you want to do. Just leave it just like that and go to your next signature. Line it up. Now here's where we start our business. We go down, start on the end hole, go down inside the second signature, just like so. So see, there's just a lot of nothing going on right there, and that's right. Now then come up through this next one. Just like that. Now go down through, and just to keep from splitting my thread, see, this is running across like this in the middle. If I go down like this, chances are I'm going to hit the thread and go right through it. So I'm going to pull that out of the way the other direction and just go around it so that I don't split my thread. And same thing here, just don't split your thread. Just come up through. So basically all we've done is we've switched the stations of each needle. Now we've got the right needle coming out the left hole, the left needle coming out the right hole, and that's what holds our signature in place, right? And in the middle of all of your signatures, you're going to have 2 threads between each hole. Okay, so this is what it should look like. 2 threads between each hole. That is normal and correct. So pull that tight. Now we're going to do our kettle stitch. And on the 2 needle Coptic stitch, you get your kettle stitch or your chain stitch or your whatever on every single sewing station. There's no weird add-on loop at the end. So this is also the only tricky part, because you see what you've got here is this loop that goes into your cover, and then this loop between your 2 signatures. You want to wrap around underneath both of those loops. So you might have to loosen this one a little bit, because you want to go under this one and under that one. Can you see? I'm under both of those loops, and that's what you want on this first stitch. That's the only tricky part of this whole thing. Go around, make sure everything is still pulled snug, and it is. We've got our open loop, make sure it's not twisted, it's open, and go down through it. Right, and there we get our pretty little chain. Okay, do the same thing here. And if your resin covers start to like warp in your hand, that's okay. It will flatten out to the way, however it's set up, that's how it's going to go back to. Trust me on that. Okay, so we went from the outside in on that, right? We went on the outside in. So this one we want to do the same thing. Instead of going right to left like I did over here, I want to go outside in, because these are like a mirrored pair. Think of your stitches as a mirrored pair. So outside in. I may have to loosen this one a little bit so that I can go under both stitches. I'm doing this left-handed. Can I do it? I just did. All right. See, I'm under them both, and that's what I want. And if you don't have a curved needle, you might have to kind of turn yours to get it to do right. Okay. Go down and pull my pretty little stitch. So there we go. Now, you don't go back down like we did before, because, you know, we've already been there, done that. It's time to hook on the next signature. So, needles out of the way. Next signature. line it up. And we're going to do the same thing, reverse the needles, right to left, left to right. So just go down one hole and up through the other. This is what's actually holding our signature on. And then this one, I'm just going to kind of pull that out of the way so that I don't split my thread, and go down this hole. And out through the other one. Okay. And that is holding our signature in place. Now we need to create our kettle stitch. Again, I'm going from the outside in. I don't have to worry about grabbing the two threads anymore. That was a one-time deal. Now I just do like we've always done. You go to the previous signature. You're going to go between the previous signature and the one before that. So it's between the first and second. Come up. There's my loop. Go down through my loop. Pull snug. And same thing here from the outside in, between the previous signature and the one before it. I'm doing this left-handed so that I don't have to pick everything up and turn it upside down. There we go. And down. There we have it. I just think that the double needle stitch produces a much neater chain stitch with a lot less effort. To me, it's just, I like it. It's worth the little extra, you know, managing two needles, which can get kind of confusing and weird, but totally worth it. And then, you know, it's like everything. Once you hit the groove, then you're good to go. Now, if you get to where you can't turn your needle enough to get up under that, you can just open your book. See where I'm trying to go around here? Just manually up and around. That will totally work. See? Okay, now at this point we are ready to attach our last signature. And you don't have to do anything special here. You do it, well, you start out just like you did before, reversing the needle positions, right to the left, left to the right. And at this point I'm going to stop because my next thing I'm going to do is attach the cover, and I don't want to do that yet. I want to do my other sewing before I put the cover on, just because it's easier for me. So what I usually do is just take my needles off take these two threads and just kind of pull them around under the cover out of the way. This is the beginning because they're coming out that one. The beginning is here. I am easily confused. Okay, let's put those around there. That's what I meant to do. Yeah, tuck them away down there. Alright, go back to the beginning. In the middle of your very first signature. And why does it only have one? It's supposed to be two crisscross. Oh no, that's my first signature. Phew. Okay, I am now at the point where I have all of my signatures attached. I've gone down into my last signature and reversed the threads and come back out to the outside. That's as far as I've gotten. So now it's time to put on the back cover. So get my cover on, lined up like I want it. And I've still got my needles in here, so I'm just going to go this direction. I'm going to go to the outside of my cover, needle up around to the inside of my set of sewing stations, just like that. Same thing over here, up and to the inside of my pair of sewing stations. So I've got it just like that. Now before I do my very last kettle stitch, I want one little extra twist. So this is just for added strength on this last on this cover, because remember on the first cover when we started sewing we went through those 2 loops and that makes it really strong. I don't have that down here, so what I'm going to do is just take my thread and just do one more wraparound on my current stitch, just that same stitch. I'm not going to the previous signature yet. This was my same one, and I'm just going to make it do one extra wraparound just so that it's a little snugger right there. Do the same thing here. Just come back around and do one little extra wrap around, which I'm trying to do left-handed, stay in frame and hold everything together. So there it is. Now I can scooch up. I have, okay, this is still technically my last signature. You don't really count the cover. So the signature before and then the one before that is where I'm going through for my kettle. Got it tight. And then down through my loop. And there, my last stitch lines up nicely. Same thing over here. This is the previous one. The one before will be right there. And down through my loop. Lines up beautifully. And then I'm just going to put these back down through the hole in the last signature. So they come out the middle like this. Then you can tie them off. Make sure they pull tight. Why is it weird? Oh, I did it wrong. Okay. I had my thread on the wrong side. There we go. In through there. Okay, now we got it. Now we know what we're doing. And yes. Now I can tie off. And what I usually do is just do 2 knots. Go. Take my thread. Here's my little middle piece. Go over and up through. Pull it. Then come up under and down through. Over and up, under and down. And that'll give you a good knot. Same thing here. Over and up through. Under. Oops. And down through. And you got it. Now you just pull your needles off and put them back on the first 2 threads, and then you do the exact same thing. There is a double needle Coptic stitch binding. Okay, don't compare tidiness because I'm not a tidy stitcher, right? We established that. But single needle, you've got the weird add-on rows at the end. Double needle, they all look the same. Plus you can vary your colors of thread. Definitely not a difficult stitch, but it does take some practice. Just to, remember what you're supposed to do when. So make about 12 books and then you'll have it down. Because that's what I did. And this is not all of them. But it's just, to me, it's just an excellent way to, you can of course use these super cool resin covers, but also to make an artist book where once it's finished, you know, you've got the pages are super awesome. It opens nice. It lays flat at every single turn. And then it has the beautiful stitching along the spine, which just looks lovely on your shelf. So give it a try. I hope that you will, and I hope that you enjoy this as much as I do. That's all I've got. The end.